Firing people so you can increase the minimum wage. Let's have a look. Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of Heise Says. Now, our two politicians, or the leader of Australia, Scott Morrison, and Bill Shorten, the opposition leader, are starting to take swings at each other. The election is coming soon. And here we go. Here's a salvo from Morrison to Shorten. His policy is people should be sacked. And this is about the minimum wage. Let's have a read through this article, because from my own experience, I've had clients who own restaurants, and just the award wage is so high, they just shut down on weekends now. There's certain periods where they won't open. And there's more and more companies that are offshoring work overseas because it is expensive to employ Australians. And at one point I had 12 employees, and the issue is, particularly with the younger employees, they don't realize that they cost you more than their wage. They cost super, they cost tax, all these other things that you have to pay to have them. They don't really appreciate that. Anyway, Australian workers on the minimum wage would receive an extra $43 a week under a union proposal submitted to the Fair Work Commission as the government and Labor face off over wages. Now, one thing to consider is whenever you have unionised employment, so you've got our union workers here, they get more money, but everyone else is worse off. When you have a unionised sector, those not in the union are worse off. But Florian, why doesn't everyone join it? Because sometimes it costs more to join the union than the money you make on the site. Prime Minister Scott Morrison has ramped up his attack on Labor, accusing Bill Shorten of forcing businesses to sack people to give others a pay rise. While the union made its case for a 10% rise to the minimum wage over 2 years, Labor is yet to detail its plan to lift low-income wages. Another issue with the minimum wage is that it prices certain segments out of the economy. Some people are not worth the minimum wage. Some people would rather work for below the minimum wage for the self-respect, just to get a job and to get the skills. But we had that as employing students of architecture to study drafting. Their minimum wage was so high that some of them were just not worth the money because there weren't the fees in the job. So you couldn't train them up. So you'd have to let them go and you'd fight to hold on to people to get them good, but then you'd lose them to a bigger firm, or that was my experience. Mr. Morrison said the Labor leader needed to be clear about how many jobs the plan would cost and how many businesses would shut down. Labor don't care about that. They wouldn't even, their economic modeling wouldn't even take that into account. He said to coffee shop owners and small businesses around the country, sack someone. That's his policy. The people should be sacked, the Prime Minister told reporters in Melbourne. Pretty much. Labor has framed the May election as a referendum on wages. A referendum on wages. I'm just dwelling on that. The idea that it's the government that controls wages is a very socialist approach to things, and in my opinion, rather dangerous. And the opposition leader has flagged legislative changes to drive up pay for low-income workers. Oh boy, yeah, that's going to work. It always has before, hasn't it? But Labor has stopped short of adopting the union's measures of a living wage which is tied to 60% of the national median salary. In a submission to the Fair Work Commission's annual review of the minimum wage, the Australian Council of Trade Unions called for a 6% rise to $762 a week, up from $719 a week. Now, just think about that. Think how many people are driving Uber, their own boss, they're their own contractor, that maybe are earning that or even less than that after expenses, but are bloody happy, that can keep a house over their heads, that can still meet their mortgage repayments, that aren't dwelling in depression because they can't provide for their family. That's just an example of where someone ignoring the rules, ignoring the taxi industry, has created an opportunity for people to get around this. Now, I know, everyone needs to deserve a fair wage, but maybe if instead of driving up the minimum wage, you stop taxing people, you let more money into the economy. What about one policy I like of Clive Palmer's is his taxation policy, stopping businesses pay their taxes every quarter, paying it only once a year, so you've got more money flowing in the economy. There's no point giving the money to the tax department so the government can inefficiently use it, when it's better to let businesses hold onto it and to let them spend it. That'll drive everything up. That's the economy working, but I don't know. No one knows about the invisible hand anymore. That would raise to a 10.7% increase over 2 years. That's higher than inflation. No full-time worker should live in poverty, ACTU Secretary Sally McManus told ABC Radio on Wednesday. Okay, well, I really question if a bureaucrat, even a unionist bureaucrat, has ever done a full day's worth of work, but that's just me being a bastard. Business groups alarmed by living wage. Mr. Shorten has endorsed the concept of a living wage, but hasn't settled on an exact amount. Employer groups have warned against compromising the independence of the Industrial Relations Tribunal, while also arguing unsustainable pay increases could cut jobs. I'd say it would cut jobs. As someone who's employed people, it is a big, for a small business owner, any wage rise you give to your workers is out of your paycheck. It's out of the money that you take home. And you'd be shocked at how many small business owners probably aren't making that much. Honestly, might be better off being an employee. But then throw in one and they all become employees, and we only have big businesses running everything, and we have a beautiful, efficient, crony capitalist system. Yep, that's what we want. No entrepreneurs. Assistant Treasurer Stuart Roberts said everyone wanted to see higher wages, but it needed to be done in a responsible way. Well, yes, no, that's true. We all want to see higher wages, but there's two ways to do it. One, you have the government pushing them up with legislation. Two, you have the economy pulling them up because of supply and demand. Those are the two ways that you can get wages up. Now, which would you prefer? I know which I'd prefer. The economy pulling them up because of supply and demand, not the government legislating them up. But Labour frontbencher Ed Hussick said Australia needed a functioning economy that worked for the majority of people rather than a few. That's not what we're discussing. We all agree we need a functioning economy. What we're talking about is either the government propping up wages artificially, or the economy being the driving factor, supply and demand pulling up wages. The Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry is against governments using legislation when the rate of any pay rise has been set by an independent body for more than a century. The Business Council of Australia and Australian Industry Group have also warned against unsustainable wage rises. What do you all think? Do you think Shorten's plan? I mean, from a political perspective, it'll buy them votes. It will definitely buy them votes. It might bring back some of the people that have been alienated by the identity politics of the left. So they're going to buy votes with the minimum wage rise. They're going to buy votes with the wage gap rubbish. And then they're gonna encourage bringing in more people from overseas, which will put more pressure on minimum wages, more competition for the low-skilled jobs. Okay, so how does it make sense? It doesn't need to make sense. It's politics. It just needs to win people's votes. That's what you need. That's what you're shopping for. That's what you're selling. I'm a little concerned. As a business owner, I know the challenges of wages for workers. It is tougher than many people realize. I think what this is telling me is that Labor needs to get small business owners into their party. They need to get rid of the union members. They need to have a cap. This is never going to happen. But they need to have some of the tradies, the business owners, the tradies, the 1-2-man band tradies need to get into the Labor Party and to pull it back towards the center. It needs to be dragged kicking and streaming back towards the center so we can start having reasonable discussions about these things. I don't know, guys. Let me know what you think. Please, do you reckon that this will work? Do you think it'll with the economy heading the way it is, consumer confidence the way it is, housing prices the way they're predicted to go? Do you think this will make any difference? I think it'll just increase the unemployment rate and will price certain people out of the sector, out of employment. Guys, thanks for joining me for this episode. Please like, share, and subscribe. Ding the bell to see my daily updates. And, since no one's going to be shopping at bricks and mortar stores anymore, click on my Amazon referral link to support the channel when you buy your groceries. Because, every shop will be closed down because of minimum wages. Take care, everyone. See you tomorrow.